Hello everybody, my name is Liam Wolkin, and today we are going to be transforming this old out-of-date bathroom from this into this. Here's how we did it. Starting this project off with some framing. That's right, the homeowner actually did all of the demo, as well as they opened up the shower floor there to give us access and to create a curbless shower. And they also installed a pocket door rough-in. So big shout out to the homeowner on this project. Did a lot of work by himself, really impressive stuff here. And what we're doing right now is just framing up a couple of half walls. This is where the tub will go, so it's just going to create a nice little accent piece as well as a ledge to house any of your items. And really cool idea here. If it was left up to me, I would have just thrown in a half wall, but the homeowner came up with that cool drawing. Cool idea here, and it's always a real pleasure to work on something new and fresh, and I really like how this thing turned out. We did build both of these walls on the ground and then later transferred them into position using shims and a level to make sure everything's flush and plumb. To give you a little idea of what Mario and Luigi did here, reworked the shower and tub drain locations as well as brought in a new vent that ties into the attic vent, all the existing stuff there. And then we have 1/2-inch PEX going everywhere to all our new fixture locations. So what you can kind of see there is actually a digital shower valve. So it does have battery backup, and it is a very smart system. And there's going to be a built-in rain head in the ceiling there. So we built a little box and got some vaporware above it so we can actually insulate all around it, keep it warm with the warm air from the bathroom. And separate shower valve there for a little handheld sprayer, help keep the wet room clean. And over here, this is the control for the shower valve, the smart system. So there'll be an access panel in this closet. And all those connections, the shark bites there, were later changed to be soldered. Creating the recessed shower floor here, and I do have a full video on this if you're interested in learning more. Interesting thing with this job, however, is that the homeowner, before we even came out, actually shaved down the tops of the joists at, I believe it was 5/8 of an inch. That way we could avoid building up the rest of the bathroom floor. Big problem with these curbless showers is that a lot of the time, in order to get the heights right, you have to build up the rest of the bathroom floor, which then makes the floor height of the bathroom taller than the area outside of the bathroom. However, in this situation, our joists were sized in such a way that we could take off a little bit off the top and still have them structurally sound. Really great idea here, and it created just a beautiful, beautiful transition. Another extra little step we like to take with these projects is screwing down the existing subfloor. We take a chalk line and mark every single joist and drive a bunch of flooring screws down to ensure there will be no future squeaks. The last thing we want is all this hard work to be done to have a squeaky floor. With all of the mechanical items roughed in, we can begin boarding up. This is always a nice day as things finally start to feel like they're progressing. The most important step, arguably, which is the waterproofing. Last thing we want is this brand new shower to leak. So for our walls here, we're using Board. And if you are a beginner, I would strongly recommend using this product. It's just really easy to use. You might look at the initial cost and get a little bit scared, but don't be. In my opinion, it's just really good value for what it is. And yeah, you can look at other products on the market, but I think this one, while it is a little bit pricey, I think it's worth it. We will be installing some accent lighting below this half wall, and in order to do this, I'm installing Schluter Deco, just a tile profile that can perfectly fit some LED lighting in it, and I'm keeping it 1/2 inch off of that back wall. That way, when it comes to installing tile, we can just slide the tile behind the deco and have a really clean transition. When it comes to mudding, we have a pretty standard procedure. We start by pre-filling any larger gaps and cracks with sheetrock 45, taping with the green box of mud, and then finishing with the amber or orange box of mud here, machine mud that would be. Got to cover up any of these washers and seams of where the board meets board. In order to do that, we are using a combination of Curdy Band and Schluter's All Set Thin Set with the Curdy Trowel, and then a couple drywall knives to just collapse all of those ridges and make sure the banding is installed tightly over all of the board. We will be doing heated floors within the shower itself, so in order to get the right height for our drain here, we need to space the drain up by the same depth of the heated floor mat. So we just take a little ring of the Ditra Heat, install it below the drain, including the little foam spacer it comes with, thin set that all down, and then we can wet our subfloor and lay the pan into position. Anytime we're installing a product on the floor here, we're going to tamp it down. And because, again, this is a heated shower floor, we're actually going to lay out the Ditra Heat over top of the pan as well as the entire bathroom floor. We are huge fans of the peel and stick membrane here. In order to install it, we do have to have a really clean subfloor though, so we vacuum it a couple of times and wipe it all down with a damp sponge. We have to make sure there's no dust on this floor in order to get the correct bond. And this is pressure activated, so you really want to tamp down the Ditra Heat as much as you can. With the heating cables, we do have to maintain a certain distance away from specific items such as floor registers, vanities, walls, plumbing fixtures, all that. So we just take a Sharpie and mark lines as where we should not be running the cables. And then again, heated shower floor, meaning there's gonna be two separate cables. One cable, which will do the shower floor itself, and then the other cable for the rest of the bathroom floor. We ran 2 conduits up to our box. This way, each cable can have its own conduit to get to the thermostat, and we're just going to space it in a 2-3 pattern here. Because these cables cannot be cut, it means sometimes having to pull up the wire and rerun it in a better pattern, because it can be difficult to get the end of the wire where you want it. This is a fish tape. We're just going to send it down those conduits and pull up the ends of our heating cables as well as the sensing probes. They do give you 2 sensing probes, and that's going to detect the temperature in the floor and relay that back to the thermostat. You only actually need to tie one of these into the thermostat, but you run 2 to have a spare. And then I like to just CA glue everything down. That way we're not going to kick it up as we're working in this space. While Ditra Heat is waterproof, we want to take the extra step and be very cautious. So we're going to install more Curdy membrane over top of everything inside the shower area. Using, once again, Schluter's All Set, we want to key it in to all of the Ditra, into all of those gaps and cracks, and then we can trowel it out once everything's in. We're going to cut around the drain, and eventually we're going to go back with a bunch of banding along each corner, use the corner pieces that they give you, and then also the collar piece that's that donut shape around the drain. We really want to do a good job of waterproofing this floor here. Very, very important step. And this doesn't mean that waterproofing the walls isn't as important, but typically when you have a leak, it will be on a horizontal surface. And then I do have a little leftover thin set, so I'm just going to go ahead and key that into the Ditra. No point in throwing it away. The next day we can tile the floor, and with the shower here, the Curdy pan that is below everything does come prefabricated with slope. So as we're using large format tile, we need to make sure we can maintain the slope. So we do this envelope cut, which is that kind of X pattern, and that will allow each plane to have the appropriate pitch towards the drain. I also want to make a note that all of the tiles here in this wet area are matte tiles to avoid slippage. And you're using large format tiles. If you went with a glossy in the wet area, you know, it's going to be a slip and slide extravaganza. So just to avoid that, go with the matte in this area. Using another Schluter Deco SG profile here along the floor, and we're using a nice thick bead of silicone to adhere it down. This is what the fixed piece of glass is going to sit into, and on top of that, the idea with the silicone is that any water that gets underneath the tile will be contained within the shower area, as it will not be able to wick past the silicone. For the rest of the bathroom floor, we are doing same 24 by 24 inch large format tiles. These ones are glossy though, as they are not in the wet area. We're using a 1/2 inch square notch trowel to get the thin set down, and this is Mappe Carabon T white thin set. We're doing 1/16 inch grout lines with the wedge style system to get rid of any potential lippage. And of course, back buttering each and every single tile as we go about this install. The next day, we remove all of the wedges and then clean out any excess thin set that made its way into the grout lines. Just a knife. You want to be careful though. You don't want to extend your knife too far. You don't want to cut any floor heat or waterproofing below. It's just kind of taking out a little bit of that thin set, vacuuming it, and then giving it a wash with the microfiber towels before putting down some more floor covering. Yet another Schluter Deco profile going up to hold the glass once again, and really important that this one lines up with the one on the floor. If I were to do this again, I don't think I'd have two decos meeting like this at an L on two different planes. Kind of makes the glass install a little tricky. But anyways, you may have noticed the black profiles in the corner. This is the Schluter EKE profiles as requested by the client. And it's a cool idea in theory. What it does is usually you'd have to silicone your corners, but with this profile, you don't have to, as it is flexible and can move. The problem with silicone, of course, is that down the road, could be 10, 15 years from now, depends on the quality of the silicone and the install, but it can go bad and could need replacing, some maintenance. So this just kind of gets rid of that extra maintenance. However, I really didn't like this product, and it's not something I could see myself ever using again. A couple bad things about it. When you're tiling your walls, you need that first row perfectly level. This profile was so flexible, the tiles kept sinking into it and getting off of level. It was really annoying to work with and try to straighten that out. On top of that, they're quite thick. I like to have maybe an 1/8 inch bead of silicone. It looks really clean in the corners, a nice transition from plane to plane. However, these are thicker and not as aesthetically pleasing in my opinion. On top of that, they kind of assume that your walls are perfectly square, plumb, and straight and flat, but that's just rarely the case. And so these profiles, really cool idea in theory, but there were just a lot of downsides that I found with them that kind of make me hesitant to ever use them again. Moving on to the niche install. Since we have the first wall done, we shoot a laser down that grout line. We can get the niche height to match up with that grout line. Looks super clean. We did go ahead and actually install this mosaic into the niche beforehand, and this is two niches put together to make one giant niche. And we poke out our low voltage cable from the top corner there to get our accent lighting in later on, and then we're just going to band up over all of those seams, make it waterproof. And then moving on to this big back wall now. I love having a full wall of tile like this, and only thing to really observe that we kind of changed up as opposed to the tiling process for the floor, let's say, is that when it comes to walls, a lot of the time we'll trowel out the thin set on the tile as opposed to the wall. So we'll take thin set, trowel out the tile side, and then back butter the wall. Just keeps it a little bit cleaner this way. A little bit of a tile break for sanding with Sebastian. He likes to lock himself in the project space and just go to town. Got a mask on, of course, and the dust extractor running, and that's just gonna minimize the amount of dust that gets out of the project space. For the niche install, we are using 1/2 inch thick Schluter Jolly profiles in chrome. And then what I like to do is miter them on the chop saw with just a metal blade on it. And deco, of course, in the top corner there. That's going to house our LED lights. And when we install these tiles, I like to take thick globs of thin set. It's almost like spot bonding, except we kind of get just a huge glob on the entire tile. That way we can squish it down, get that thin set squeezing out of every seam. We know we have full coverage that way, but more importantly is we can directly affect the pitch and placement of these tiles. The niche work is so precise that you kind of need that play with the thin set in order to get everything perfect. So a combination of a lot of thin set, a lot of squeezing out that thin set, and those little red wedges are what allow us to get everything to be perfect. Capping off the half wall here with these threshold pieces. These are just man-made stone. Comes in different colors. We're using white, obviously. And they have nice beveled edges, so it's really smooth on the hand. And it's just nice to use a solid piece like this to cap things off. I also like these on curbs and other places you can find nice uses for them. And then the same little mosaic as what was in the back of the niche to create a little accent for the back of this as well. And if you thought that was it for tiling, you were wrong, because we still have the vanity wall to do. A little accent piece here as well with this large ceramic tile. It has a beautiful texture to it that just flows from tile to tile. It's always nice working with ceramic. When you spend so much time cutting porcelain, it's so much harder and takes so much longer to cut. So ceramic, it just feels like butter after that. Then comes the grout, and this is Latacrete Permacolor in Silver Shadow. I always recommend sticking away from white, unless of course you're doing an epoxy grout, then maybe there's a better case for that, but otherwise white just discolors too quickly. So going with this light gray, and then if your grout doesn't come with a sealer built in, like this one, you need to make sure you seal it once the grout has fully cured, and that will help to maintain its color. So using a grout float to get it really in there, nice and deep, and then letting it dry a bit, cure, going back with a damp sponge, letting it cure even more, and then going with a couple microfibers, getting rid of any haze. I always find it's easier working with a glossy tile for this than a honed or matte tile. If you have attic access above your workspace, I would encourage you not to drill out the holes for your recessed lighting until your ceiling is finished. It's just a lot easier to finish a ceiling without holes in it, so because we have the access, we can drill out our holes, easily fish the wires from one to the next, and then just install our pot lights, scan lights, recess lights, whatever you may call them, get them up in there, and have some nice lighting in this new project space. I do realize I just mentioned not using white grout, and now I'm using white grout. I should have specified in a wet area, so obviously this is a non-wet area, so we can get away with white grout here. We did at some point prime, and now we can paint, and between coats we get a light sand in. Sebastian here cutting in first before rolling out these walls. We got a couple of LED mirrors, both front and backlit. Huge fan of the backlit style LED mirrors. The front lit, you know, it's practical, but personally the backlit is what really sells these for me. I love accent lighting, and I think this just adds a lot to a space when you have something like this. This is the control for the shower. Again, as I had mentioned earlier, it is smart, so you can even use your phone to control the shower here. And I was a little skeptical at first when the client first told me about this product, but after installing it and getting to use it, I really liked it. Felt like good quality. It has the battery backup, which is important, and overall I thought it was a nice product. Installing the vanity, and oftentimes when you have a vanity that gets in a corner like this, you will have a filler strip that comes with it to hide the gap along that one wall. So you want to make sure you utilize that, and we just silicone our countertop down, get it into position, and you'll have noticed at this point, I didn't mention it previously, but we did frame up a little half wall here that houses our plumbing components and allows for a nice little ledge for them. And then we get a cute little backsplash going with the same accent tile, just siliconing these tiles into position, and it all worked out really well. I was really happy with the final result on this half wall. The homeowner had the great idea to use these threshold pieces for the baseboard, and I really liked that. I saw StudPack do a similar thing, but with quartz. The benefit here to the thresholds instead is that they are a fraction of the cost of quartz. Maybe not look as nice, but because we have the same material elsewhere in the bathroom, it all matches and looks really nice. We can then apply a bead of silicone where the threshold meets the tiled floor and get a watertight connection. Really liked this idea. Installing this towel warmer, and we did get some blocking behind this wall specifically for this, as it was a very heavy unit. If you're considering getting a towel warmer, one thing I will say is it does take a while to warm the towels up, so you do have to kind of prep your towels before you shower. Think of that ahead of time so that when you get out, they will be warm. And there we have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, if I could just kindly ask you to maybe hit that like button on your way out, it really helps me out, guys. It only takes a second, and it allows me to continue to make these types of videos. This project was really fun to work on. As with all of my projects, the clients were just fantastic here, and that always makes the job so much better. If you are located in the Mississauga or surrounding areas, my contact information will be down below. You can submit a form. I have been having some troubles recently with some spam folder issues, so just be sure to check your spam folder if you do submit a request, and also note that we are typically booked a few months in advance, so don't be expecting us to do this renovation for you tomorrow. Also, if you're located in the US, again guys, I always appreciate the requests. Even if you're in Miami, no, not interested in coming out. I'm sorry. For costs here, we have about $3,200 US or $4,200 Canadian and roughly 14 days all in. Now keep in mind, these costs are just roughly estimated. They're not exact numbers, and I do them in Canadian and then convert to US, so there's always going to be a little bit of error. Be sure to check the description for my Amazon page where you can look at any of the tools that we use, and as well use the description there to look at any specific items that you're interested that were used in this job. And that's it. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a beautiful day.